Chapter 1, Tuesday, November 5th, 1816. Dalhousie Manor, Mayfair, London. "You could have worn something a touch more appealing," whispered Prudence Berwick, Lady Katherine Irving's dear friend and confidant. Catherine most certainly could not have worn something more appealing. After her stay in the holiday town of Bath a couple months past, the Marquess of Bath's elderly grandmother had for some unfathomable reason fixated upon her as the Marquess's future bride. Catherine would sooner marry her pug than she would marry Lord Bath. Not because he was so very much older than her father and stepmother were of a similar age gap and blissfully happy, but because Catherine Irving did not marry anyone. No, her aspirations resided not in happily wedded bliss, but in following her father's footsteps and becoming a detective of some renown. After the fiasco in Bath, she felt the need to redeem herself acutely. Yes, the burglar of Bath had been uncovered in the end, but she cringed every time she had to admit that she'd had her hand in the cessation of the thefts. Fortunately, the investigative arts were not seen as appropriate for her gender, though neither she nor her father subscribed to such drivel, so the majority of her acquaintances had no notion of her pursuit of criminals. For once, she was glad of that fact. Prue, a woman every bit as tall as Catherine, with a solid frame and a sharp cast to her nose and chin when she frowned, gave Catherine an assessing look as she toyed with a lock of her brown hair. "Pink might bring out your complexion." "I don't need to bring out my complexion. Green makes you look sallow. Honestly, you should burn that dress." All the better, for as long as Grandma Bath was in London with her grandson unwed, Catherine intended to look as unappealing as possible. "Perhaps if I added a few flower-shaped buttons to the bodice," she quipped. Prue grimaced. Her mother had gone wild for the ugliest floral buttons in existence. She was even trying to convince Prue to add some to her wedding dress as decoration. For all that Prue's groom, the Marquess of Annandale, had seen these notorious buttons and opted to propose anyway, Prue bristled every time her mother's fashion tastes were mentioned. Catherine pointedly raised her eyebrow at her friend. "Or perhaps we ought to try enjoying the festivities without worrying about how we look. It isn't every day someone holds an ice ball." Tucking her hair behind her ear, Prue narrowed her eyes, sly. "Are you not concerned with your appearance because a certain someone is not in attendance?" Snapping her eyes from surveying the gathering, Catherine glanced at Prue. Did she know something Catherine didn't? Feigning a smile, she quipped, "You mean Lord Annandale? I assure you I haven't set my cap for him." Prue raised her eyebrows. "Neither he nor I are concerned that you have. You know of whom I speak. Captain Dorian Wayland." Catherine fought the urge to search the gathering again. She hadn't seen him since their escapade in Bath, and she didn't look forward to seeing him tonight. In fact, it was best if they crossed paths only in the Royal Society for Investigative Techniques. Even then, their contact ought to be minimal. Even if Catherine wanted to extend their association, her father would never approve. The Earl of Dorchester hated Wayland to such an extent that Catherine had once loathed the very sight of him as well. However, after the help he'd provided on the last two cases she'd investigated, her father's explanation seemed a bit thin. From what she had observed of Wayland, he had an even stricter moral guideline than when it came to investigating suspects than she. What could he possibly have done to make her father think otherwise? Desperate to change the subject, Catherine said, "Yes, where is Lord Bath?" Look for the third book in the Lady Katherine Regency Mystery series this August.